All right, guys. For everyone inside, you're going to miss out. Okay, panel number 2. Yay. Woo! Yes, we are welcoming Garrett Ma and Montrell Felix. So thank you guys so much for joining us today. Yay! So now we get to be on the actual big career tech side of things, diving into all of the juicy questions. We're going to talk about how to stand out in competition. What are you guys hiring for? But first and foremost, we want to get to know you, right? So maybe Garrett, can you start off with a summary of your background, your current position, and then I have a juicy question for you after that. But let's get to know you first before I put y'all in the hot seat. Yeah.
Thank you for the intro. Name's Garrett. I'm currently the SVP of Operations at Tally Health. It's a direct-to-consumer longevity company out of New York. I'm stationed in San Francisco. Prior to that, I've had multiple other roles as a general manager at Curology, ran operations strategy at Nurex, and also used to be a consultant at Bain & Company prior to that. So I recruit a lot for business intelligence, data analytics. Data runs the company, and that's how we like to do it.
And Montrell, tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Montrell Felix. Currently, I'm a consultant under my own organization, which I've been doing for a year. I'm currently on an assignment at Google. Prior to that, I was at Amazon for about 4 years. I built a consulting practice within Amazon, specifically focused on DevOps and engagement management. So that was probably one of the coolest projects I've ever worked on. I've been in the industry for about 15 plus years and still loving it.
Amazing. Well, since you're still in the hot seat, Montrell, tell us, is there a point in your career journey where you made a really big pivot that led you on the path to where you are today? That stands
Actually,
out? Yeah.
That's a good question. So I started my career in international trade. Actually, I was working for JP Morgan, and tech just kind of happened. It was a mistake. I was assigned to a project to actually upgrade the system, and I got exposed to technology, and I realized I loved it, so I decided to go back to school and get a master's, and landed my first tech job at Quicken Loans back in Detroit. And after there for a year, I booked a one-way ticket to California, and I've been in tech ever since.
Ooh, Garrett, it's your turn. What big juicy pivot do you have that maybe fast-tracked you to where you are today, or anything that really defines your career journey? Yeah.
I've taken jobs everywhere. I've taken different roles that are a bit different in marketing or in operations or business operations, but the cornerstone across all of these have always been data analytics.
Maybe collectively you guys can both answer this. Difference between working in big tech, corporate, and startup. What stands out for you between the two? And then maybe what experiences do you guys, would you say you get in both environments? If you want to go first, Montrell. Yeah.
I would say the major difference between working for big tech and a startup is basically the scope of work. If you're working for a startup, expect to have a lot of responsibilities. You're probably going to be doing 2 to 3 jobs. That's good exposure for your resume, but it is a lot to keep in mind. I think working for big tech companies is definitely more structured. Also, there's a lot of talented people, so you have to stand out even after you get there. So in terms of getting promoted and really finding a way to self-promote and brag about yourself is really important. So getting in the door is one step, but having longevity and having career progression, you have to find ways to constantly market yourself and rebuild your skills.
Yeah, what about you, Garrett? Some stand out.
Echoing what he's saying. So if you look at two worlds, right? If you look at big tech, corporate jobs, there's HR. Right? There's promotion cycles. It's pretty stable. You know exactly what's going on. You know your scope of work. You know what you're about to do. You grow with the company. And then exactly what he's saying, when you think about startups, obviously there's a range of startups from your employee number 1 or your employee number 100. There's generally, what you do matters a lot, right? You do good work, the company will do well. If you do bad work, the company might not do so hot, right? So what you do really, really matters. And then from a compensation perspective, there's also a bit of a difference, right? In a startup, you're banking on the company's rise, right? You may get paid a little bit less in cash, but you may make it up all in equity. But then you think about other companies that you think about big tech, you think about Google, Facebook, you could get paid quite a bit more, but your equity grows with the size of the company.
What should you be asking about in the interview process to make sure you know it's the right place for you?
I would say the number one question that I ask is, what would I be doing in the first 90 days? What should I expect to be doing? Because that's going to give you a little bit of insight into, do you have support? Are they going to spend time training you? Or are they just going to throw you to the rules and have you figure it out? I think that's a real telltale. Also, I would say, ask about the people who are most successful. What are they doing in the company, right? What are some of the characteristics or trends that you see in people who are considered high achievers at the company? That's also going to give you insight into, do you want to do that? Do you want to work 60 hours to get to that next level? Or do you want to prioritize work-life balance, I would say.
End of the day, there's a lot of soul search, just like, what do you actually want, right? There's like, do I want a stable job that I'm like working on this one particular thing? And that's totally okay. And then the other side is like, far more than likely very unstable. Your hours are going to fluctuate, exactly what Montreal is saying, but like there could be more upside. It could be more interesting. At the end of the day, like if your boss sucks, your job's going to suck. If you have an awesome manager who's willing to help you and nurture you and get you to where you want to be, it doesn't matter where you are on the spectrum. Like if you have a good manager as a startup or you have a good manager as a corporate side, you're going to learn a lot more than you have a bad manager on other sides.
What does it take in this day and age to really stand out in a sea of competition if you want to land your first job in tech? Like what is your advice to like help somebody navigate this process? Maybe start with you, Garrett, because I'm like giving the death stare.
I go first.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm changing it up a little bit.
So yes, it's always, I've been on both sides, right? I have been interviewed and applied to many jobs. I've also gotten rejected by many jobs. And on the other side, I've also interviewed a bunch of people and recruited a bunch of people. What makes a resume stand out is a few things. I think one, if there's a path to make it more personalized, meaning they see my email on LinkedIn or they're willing to do a little bit of extra work to figure out what my email is and sending it to me, it's really hard for me to ignore, right? Like, at least I will look at your resume. If you drop in LinkedIn, I may not see it unless you were in the first 100. Second, trying to get a referral, right? Either, if you can't get the hiring manager, that's even better. But sometimes there are other people who work at the company that you may be connected to, either second or third degree connections, where you could get them to drop in their resume. The goal here is that you just don't want to be one of the many resumes that are there. You want to be one of the people who get accepted and then pulled in.
People also underestimate the power of a connection. It is really important for you to build a connection. Like when you're interviewing, I like to be conversational because I feel more authentic and I feel like there's a better chance of me connecting with that person. The other side of that is if you're talking big tech companies, it's very structured, right? Like me as a hiring manager, I've been through hundreds of interviews at Amazon. I don't have full control to say, I love this candidate, I want to hire this candidate. It's an entire panel, right? And they're scoring you. There's tech breadth, there's tech depth, and for Amazon specifically, it's leadership principles. How well do you score against all of those? And also, how well are you likable?
Don't be a jerk, be kind, have a conversation, really connect with the people you're going to work with. Because at the end of the day, this is a team sport. If you guys don't gel, it's going to be really hard to do well.
Some good information. Whew. Should have turned this into a podcast. Effective networking strategies for both landing a job and finding mentors. Because I feel like landing a job we've talked about, but I think there's a secret sauce when you're reaching out to somebody who is maybe holding a dream job or that you want to get to know. So what would you say good, effective, like asking somebody to be your mentor? How do you do it? Yeah.
The thing about mentoring is, yes, we all want to mentor. It feels good to do it, but not everyone has the time to do it. And to be frank, in some way you have to think about how can I give something in return? That's the reality. Be it, you volunteering for an organization that they love, or, you taking the time to mentor someone that they may know, right? That's part of building the connection, obviously, but thinking about it, not just what can you do for me, but thinking about what can I do for you in return, and approach it that way.
To Montreal's point is like you pull in certain details that you're seeing, like, oh, I noticed, like, I would love to talk to you about this Like, there might not be a job opening. That's totally fine. You're just talking about and giving interest so that the moment that that lands, they're the first person you think of. In terms of the mentor side, I totally agree with you, Mantrell. I think there is a component. Time's a scarcity. We only have so much time on this planet. Like, if you can try to make it a little bit more organic, that's always our goal. But like, if there's someone that you're just like, that's who I want to be like, also doesn't hurt to send them a message. Like, you could think through like the best way to craft it, try to find avenues to get to this person. But like, the one thing is, if you don't try, it's like guaranteed zero.
And I always say kindness and compliments. Who doesn't love compliments? Like, oh my gosh, you're amazing. You're like, thanks. Let's have a chat. But no, I mean, I feel like to be kind and also be sometimes very specific. Because I feel like there's an elusiveness of like, I hope I hear from you. And you're like, well, hope is not a plan, right? I'm throwing in my 2 cents. You guys, you're welcome. But I also feel like a call to action, right? In an email or a follow-up email, hey, are you free Tuesday at 9:30? Where maybe you are getting that email directly to your work email and you're like, immediately, as a human instinct, we kind of look over to our calendar, right? So I think a call to action, mixed in with kindness, compliments, specific things, organicness, it's all a strategy, but you guys, that's the formula right there.
It's the soft skills that matter. You want to build interest between the two of you guys. Such that, like, so that you could create this camaraderie where they want to help you. Like, create a story for yourself. Like, hey, like, I've always wanted to do your job. Like, I've been admiring, like, what you've been talking about thus far. Like, love if you could have some time, like, happy to hop on a call or get coffee sometime to learn a little bit more. And then that could open doors from, like, new jobs, or frankly, just like help you just better understand, like, is that the path that you actually want to take?
Yeah, any lasting advice on networking strategies or something that has worked really well for you?
I would say investing in tech conferences, there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them. If you're interested in ServiceNow, there's Knowledge. If you're interested in AWS, they have Google, they all have them now. Obviously, some of those aren't all open to the public, but if there's a way for you to get tickets to those events, that's a great way to network. Typically, it's in Vegas and everyone's drinking. Perfect time to meet people.
More likely to talk to you.
Exactly, build those connections,
So this is from Montreal. There are a ton of freelance roles out there these days. How do you stand out as an individual contributor to land a job and position yourself for leadership?
I think it's really important, I think I mentioned this before, is to master something. There's a lot of people who have certifications. There's a lot of people who, know all of these types of technologies, but becoming a subject matter expert in something and marketing yourself that way is really valuable, especially in the freelance space. They're looking for someone with a very specific skill set, So, and don't underestimate the power of freelancing. That's a really good gateway into permanent work. I started my career as a contractor, and if they like you, when they get the budget, they will hire you, so.
One more question. What do you love most about your career in tech, Garrett? Yeah.
Ooh, I like the problems. I think the problems are a lot of fun.
Problem solver.
I think I like to build, right? And I think a lot of you guys here would probably feel the same. It's like you get something from 0 to 1, 1 to 100. You get a mold. You may not be like building something with your hand, but you're building something with your mind, right? Diagnosing, breaking down problems, solving, and taking your company one step at a time, and in some cases making the world a better one step at a time. And I think that's the most exciting part of my day to day. That makes me like, tick and want to keep going.
Job satisfaction. We need it. Montreal, before I let you go to some of these questions, yes, what do you love about your career in tech?
I love knowing that I'm, in some ways, writing history. Some of the projects that we got a chance to really work on is really going to change, how our lives work. So knowing that you're working on things that could really change people's lives and benefit, in some ways the future, I love that, I also love helping other people grow their career. So seeing someone who's hungry and really helping them put them on a guide that works for them, I think is really cool to see them kind of, take off. So.
Well, the industry is lucky to have you both. Thank you for your time here. And questions. Woo! There's so many good things. Yes. Oh, here comes the stand. So come on up. Come on up. Mm-hmm. Front and center.
All right. So my question is, many of us have taken different paths, not the, I guess, college route of getting a master's degree in computer science, coding, and whatnot. Would you say one way for us to show how hungry we are is to get the certificate and then go to, I guess, small no-name companies and build websites for them and build our portfolio? Would that stand out to you guys? As in, he not only got the certificate, but he was also doing this outside of that.
100%. I think that's the best way to really stand out. There's obviously a lot of competition, so your focus should be getting the experience. Certifications do hold a lot of weight, but having that experience with it is going to take you a lot further.
And I think there's, as you mentioned, like there's a common path, right? There's a common path, but that's not the only path, right? Like if you're talking about, and I assume you're talking about software engineering, like the common path is like, you go to your undergrad and then you go hired at Google and like you just grow within Google. Like that is a common path, but not the only way. And I think coming back to our conversation that we've always talked about is like showing your grit and your desire and your passion for something, right? You may not be on that path. That's totally fine. But this is where your passion by demonstrating what you're talking about, helping people build websites, doing things on the side projects, really convey your conviction that this is something I want to work on and this is why you want to hire me. At the end of the day, it's like who could do the job better.
Exactly. A lot of big tech companies dropped the degree requirements for that reason. They saw the value add with people coming out of boot camps versus hiring someone from a 4-year degree who we still have to train, by the way, right? So it's a question of how prepared are you? Me as a hiring manager, how quickly can you get up to speed? That's the question. So if you can demonstrate that, I think it goes a lot further.
Technical interviews can be really scary, and this is also probably subjective on the seniority level and experience. So let's look at it from like a junior role. Do they care if you get the answer right in the interviews? And can you ask questions and should you feel comfortable?
Yeah, I think it depends, right? At least within like data intelligence, business intelligence, or data analytics, there generally is a right answer. But I think there's one component. The other component is like how you think about the problem, right? And like document your work. If you just tell me the answer is 5, but the answer was 7, and you didn't tell me like why you think it's 7, like how am I supposed to know that like you just thought about or interpreted different assumptions a little bit differently, which is like totally okay. Like if the assumptions that you made are slightly different than assumptions I thought you should make, but you came up with a different answer, that's totally fine. And then I think your other component is like asking questions. I think asking clarifying questions is critically important. If something in the prompt or like if you're doing a technical interview, it doesn't make a ton of sense and it is kind of a blocker for you to getting to the end, asking these clarifying questions are going to be critical, and also documenting any assumptions that you want to make to get the answer. I'm talking about purely from a data analytics perspective. Love your thoughts.
I would just to add to that. I would say in the software engineering world, obviously we know you're not going to get every answer right. But to his point, how did you arrive at that answer? For me, I would feel more comfortable with you acknowledging that you made a mistake and finding a solution than being confidently wrong. To me, it's a major risk if you're confidently wrong in your answer and I put you in front of my customer and you potentially lose the trust that it took us months to build. So to me, I really care about whether or not it's right or wrong. We can teach you, it's more about how did you arrive at your answer and are you open to learning so that you can grow?
Gotcha. And that's pretty common. I've heard that a lot, but it's nice hearing it from people that have probably done countless interviews. So awesome. Thank you guys.
Yeah, I have like two quick questions. The first one is like about writing your resume. Like I've heard like different opinions about using AI for the resume because sometimes it sounds like very fabricated. Sometimes they don't like that, or like it's better to use it like just as an extra to write your resume. And the second question is about like if you're in an interview and, for example, you have all the qualifications or most of them, and suddenly they ask you about something that you don't know, like do you know Ruby on Rails? And you're like, I don't. But what is like a good answer to say about that? Can I learn, the job, or like how is like a good answer for that?
So I think it really depends on the role. But if you don't know it, I would just say, I don't know that, but I'm open to learning it. For a perfect example is when I was hiring for DevOps engineers, we knew that some people wouldn't have Python skills, but we had programs internally to help them get up to speed on that. So it wasn't a complete disqualifier. But if you were to pretend that you knew it and then you go to this builder program only to find that you don't know it, then that's a major red flag. So I would say just be transparent about it. It doesn't automatically disqualify you.
And I think to your resume point, to what we had been talking before, I personally think AI as it is now is still a tool to be used, right? As you craft your resume, you need to be able to speak to the bullet points that you put down. So if AI just said that, you used to be an astronaut and went to Mars and you can't really speak to it, it's not gonna really help you. But you need to be able to, so like if you're gonna use it as a tool, like, hey, like I am able to, I don't know, deploy code 20% faster or something, be able to speak to that, and you can use AI to craft it into a better language or like use different verbs. Like you can certainly use it that way, but if it like completely transforms to something that's unrecognizable to even to you, and you're unable to speak to it, then it's kind of not very helpful.
Thank you.
Amazing. Oh, you guys are incredible. Whew. Like my cup is full. I'm just gonna move to LA, everybody. But yay, thank you guys so much. Like what an amazing panel. Like let's give it up